Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Ferrer, your professor. Good morning, class. This morning we'll be discussing population problems and policies of developed countries and developing countries. But first, we have to review the definition of developing countries against the developed countries. Developing countries, as defined earlier, are countries with low or middle levels of gross domestic product per capita, as well as 5 high-income developing economies such as China, Israel, Kuwait, Singapore, and the United Arab Emirates, as classified by the World Bank. There are also several countries with transition economies that are sometimes grouped with developing countries based on their low or middle levels of per capita income, and sometimes with developed countries based on their high industrialization. Now let's discuss the factors affecting human population size, such as population change equation. First is population change. This is equal to birth plus immigration minus deaths plus immigration. Immigration is defined as the coming of people to live permanently in a foreign country, while immigration is defined as living one's country to settle permanently in another country. Second is crude birth rate equals to births per 1,000 people in a population per year, while crude death rate is equals to deaths per 1,000 people in population per year, while total fertility rate, or TFR, is the number of children that a woman has during her lifetime, or sometimes called as average for population. Another factor is the replacement level fertility, which is the number of children needed to replace everyone in the population. And another is the zero population growth, or that is when birth rate equals death rate. Then next are the factors affecting birth rates and total fertility rates. One is children in labor force. If children are compelled to work, then it affects the birth rates and fertility rates, believing that the larger the number of children in the family, the greater the chance of earning income for the family. Then another is the cost of raising and educating children. When we speak of cost, we mean the expenses incurred in raising or educating children. Third is the availability of pension systems. There are countries that provides good pension systems, but there are also countries that provides otherwise. Then another factor is urbanization, particularly in cities or metropolis. And of course, added to these factors is the education and employment for women. Once women are highly educated or are part of the workforce, that specifically affects birth rates or fertility rates. Then another is the infant mortality rate, or sometimes also defined as the death rate, referring to the number of deaths of infants in a particular population. Then we have also the average marrying age. There are countries that allows marrying age as early as 15, but of course in the Philippines we do have 18 as the legal age for uh, male and female to contract marriage. And next is abortion. This really affects birth rates or fertility rates. And finally, we have the availability of birth control. Almost all countries in the world are providing birth control. However, issues on population growth remains constant. It was found out that major social factor determining family size is the role of women in society. This is particularly true with early marriages, especially with women, that fosters high fertility rates. Then another, of course, lack of education opportunities for women reduces their options as another social factor. And it is being said that when level of education increases, fertility rates fall. And one of the most important factor is the ability of women to control the size of their family. It was believed by authors that the women has that significant role in controlling the size of the family. And of course, access to birth control is also important. Then we have the factors that determine the impact of a society on natural resources. This includes population size, population density, the degree of technological development. When we speak of population density, this is the measurement of the population per unit area. Another is demography, or the study of the populations and their characteristics. Characteristics that might include birth, death, income, or diseases, no, that are present in that particular society. Now let's discuss national policy, particularly with population growth. Defining policy, this is a set of government statements and actions that are designed to influence the behavior of the people in order to achieve a desired outcome. Or these are government actions that can be categorized into 5 broad policy instruments. These policy instruments includes information, laws and regulations, taxes and price controls, direct spending or investments, and of course, research. Now let's define population policies. These are policies used to influence population growth and distribution that involve a wide range of decisions and actions by governments, both direct and indirect, with the intention of influencing individual and family decisions regarding marriage and childbearing, working arrangement, place of residence, and many others. So there are 2 types of population policies: the direct or the explicit, and the indirect or implicit. Explicit policies are government actions taken for the purpose of affecting a demographic outcome, such as migration laws and the likes, while implicit policies are government actions that only indirectly have some demographic effects to populations, such as promoting female education and many others. Now let's have some examples of explicit and implicit policies whose purpose is to slow population growth. So, under the explicit policies, uh, we can include providing free family planning services by the government, or increase taxes for each additional child, or policy that restricts immigration, or those that raise the age of marriage. So these four are examples of explicit policies. While for implicit policies, this might include compulsory secondary education, restriction on child labor, or limit in the size of houses, or raising the status of women, or providing all age security. So in general, in order to cut global population growth, the following policies may be adopted, and this includes family planning, improve health care, elevate the status of women, increase education, involving men in parenting by reducing poverty or sustainability. By looking at the slide, which is the bigger problem, the part of having aging population with limited number, or the young population with greater in number. Now, there are also governments that provides expansive policies, or policies that supports population growth, also known as pro-natalist, or those that encourage large families, such as that of Germany, the Nazi Germany. We have Soviet Union before, China under Mao, then Ceausescu in Romania. You have People's Republic of Albania, Bulgaria, and Mongolia. There are even countries that gives awards, medals for mothers of 4 or 5 or 10 children or more. Example, Russia, they have what they call Conception Day, which is during September 12, also known as Procreation Day in one of its provinces, particularly in Ulyanov, where Vladimir Lenin was being born. And they have these couples who have a child on the 12th of June are being rewarded by the regional government. Another is that of Sweden. In 1980s, couples with small children receive tax incentives, job leaves, work flexibility for 8 years. And during the early 90s, they have what they call the mini baby boom in Sweden. When we say baby boom, this is a significant increase of birth rate in a particular country. However, in the mid-90s, due to some problems in their economy, that baby boom was also affected. Next is that of China. I guess you're all familiar with the one couple, one child policy in China, whose purpose is to control birth in the country. It was adopted in 1979, where birth control This birth control policy is believed to be the harshest in the world. Do you think so? So, with this policy, couples are asked to pledge to having only one child. So, these are the incentives under the one child policy. Couples, particularly parents or mothers, have free or will receive free prenatal care. The family will also receive several rewards, particularly those in the urban areas, such as larger homes, larger salaries, and promotions. They also receive better or often free education for the only children they have. They have paid maternity leave of 3 to 6 months or sometimes longer. And of course, the government generally pays for the birth control cost. But of course, recently we have this problem of changing demographic landscapes. And observe this includes decline in fertility, the rapid demographic transition, the aging population, the skewed sex ratio, and large-scale internal migration, especially from rural to urban areas. When we say skewed sex ratio, there is an observable distortion or sudden change in the number between male and female population. As to the aging population, research have revealed that in 2000, the percentage of the population with are aged 65 years or older only comprise 6% of the entire population of the world, while in 2009 they comprise 8% of the entire population. However, it was observed that there is an elderly growing rate at 3.2% every year, and it might reach us up to the maximum of 20% by year 2035. And by 2040, it was believed that the median age is on a pace to move from the current 32 years to 44 years old. Now let's take the case of India. In 1950s, the government began a modest family planning campaign. In doing so, hospitals made birth control available, and the government hoped increased industrialization would lead to smaller families. However, in 1970, a more aggressive program was introduced, and the government believed growth rate was greatest obstacle to economic growth. So they have questioned the sterilization programs of the government, and by 80s there is an increased number of family planning programs. However, in 1991, India remained or continued to have one of the fastest growing population, and the contributing factors to this fastest growth or their preference for a male or a male child, or because they marry young, and due to high infant mortality rate. Now let's move with the more developed countries' problems and policies. More developed countries refer to 30 to 40 countries, mainly Europe, Anglo-America, Australia, Japan, Argentina, Uruguay, etc. These countries believed to support only 24.5% of the world's population. And most of these countries are on the last stage of demographic transition. When we say demographic transition, we mean population change over time. So these countries, as I said earlier, are believed to be on the last stage of this transition. So this means that their population is either stagnant or has a slow rate of growth. So now let's have the present problems faced by developed countries. One is the decreasing fertility rates. Reasons under this problem includes a relaxation on restrictions on the use of contraceptives, or increase in female labor force participation, change in church attitude towards abortion, and 1 out of 4 pregnancies in the world are aborted, or delayed childbearing due to late marriages, or childbearing and rearing has become expensive. So these are the reasons believed to have contributed in the decrease in the fertility rates as a problem of developed countries. Next problem is high mortality rates. So despite of improvements in healthcare in these countries, there is also a shocking sign of failure of development. Reasons includes a large proportion of population lies in old age segment, and male mortality rates are higher than female mortality rates. Even in the Philippines, it can be observed that male mortality rates are somewhat higher than that of the females. Another problem of developed countries is the aging population. This can be attributed to low mortality rates, low fertility rates, and the baby boom after the Second World War. The next problem is that of immigration. This can be due to high standards of living of developed countries that attracts people from all over the world, or people fleeing war situations such as that of Syria, or because of the demand for unskilled labor in these countries, and or the migrants enters these countries illegally. Now, how about the policies to stabilize population? So these are the suggested policies that can be adopted by governments in order to stabilize population growth. First is by legalizing birth control method. This contraceptive pill was being introduced in the 60s and was made legal in most countries by 1970s. And among these countries includes Philippines, we have Pakistan, we have Ukraine, we have China, Guatemala, of course the United States, and other countries. And second is by legalizing abortions. There are around 61 countries in the world that have legalized abortions without restriction. And there are also observations that church attitude towards abortions has relaxed. So among these countries that legalized abortion includes the United States, we have Tunisia, Denmark, Austria, France, Sweden, New Zealand, Italy, Netherlands, and the rest. And third is family planning services. This was introduced to minimize the problems of unintended pregnancies, illegitimacy, and to promote female reproductive health. The Philippines is one of these countries that have adopted these family planning services. Then number 4 is the strict immigration policies, such as countries like the United States and United Kingdom have formulated discriminatory policies for combating the large number of immigrants. Of course, these countries have attracted thousands or millions of migrants around the world. Next is sex education in schools. Sweden has made sex education compulsory in schools to reduce unintended pregnancies. Of course, the Philippines have also that proposal of including sex education in its curriculum, though it was not being made compulsory. And the last is the pro-natalist attitude, such that the Pope has a strong influence in Eastern Europe. Therefore, this region has a pro-life and pro-natalist attitude. And another is Russia, due to its high mortality and low fertility rates, also has a pro-natalist population policy. So those are the policies which are being recommended in order to stabilize population. For your activity for this topic, you are advised to write a question or questions and ask a classmate during our Google Meet for answers. That would be all, class, for this morning. See you in the next video.